This is the church I used to go to in England when I lived in England. Congregational church. Was converted in there to Jesus Christ, and yeah, the minister doesn't live on this planet anymore, but he's gone somewhere else. But we have a minister here called Ian Densham now, and if you're in Hemel Hempstead, then please go to worship on Sundays at 11 and at 6:30 p.m. and then they've got a Bible study at 7:45 on Wednesdays, prayer meeting at 7:45 on Fridays. So there you have it, and it's worth going to this place. Today, what I'm doing today with this particular film is I'm going for a little walk just around Hemel Hempstead. I've been on some bigger walks without the camera that have been a bit more intensive. We went on one 2 days ago, and I'm going on tomorrow. So on these 2 days in between, I'm going on less challenging walks, just filming and talking. So we've got I'm taking around Hemel Hempstead to different areas. I've put on earlier a northwest Hemel Hempstead video. That'll probably be the last of the regions I go to today. I just want to go around all the regions of Hemel Hempstead, all the neighbourhoods as they're called. Hemel Hempstead having been reconstructed in 1946 on what's called the neighbourhood concept. Each of these neighbourhoods would have their own regional shopping, sort of row of shops and a community centre, but it would, together these 6 or 7 neighbourhoods would produce the town of Hemel Hempstead. So first we're going to go up Highfield. I'm going to go around the sort of outside, as it were, for as long as I can. Hemel's not a big town. It's probably like 4 miles from one end of it to another. So if you want to go around about it in a big square, you've got to kind of reckon on about 10 to 15 miles, depending on how exactly you go through it. That's the Queen's Way, one of the old streets going through it. So this is the older part, the old town of Hemel Hempstead. So what we've got is what used to be the post office. There's now an estate agent's. Most of the things here have changed from what they used to be, although not all of them. This is now, I have no idea what that is, but you've got some idea of the things that it used to be. It used to be like a furniture shop, and it's got some cities like names like Bulldog, Willing Garden City and Hertford over it. But now it's sort of like a sort of bit of a grocery store or convenience store there. There was a hairdresser there with an old style, what they used to have outside of all the barber shops, that rotating spiral thing there. Used to be the symbol for a barber shop, and you don't see it that often. You've got the White Hart. You've got a few pubs and restaurants going on up the old high street here, and this is actually rather an old street. Going back several hundred years, and maybe with the case of some buildings even longer. You can see the top of the old town hall there and the Corn Exchange, which we'll see in a minute by it. Mixed in, of course, with modern buildings from last century. I don't think there's anything from the 21st century here at all at the moment, other than the scaffolding, of course, the repair work that has to go on. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Usually you see Mogondovids with offensive symbols, whereas at least you've got a Star of David with a nice heart in the middle. So as his graffitis go, that's quite a nice one. At least it doesn't look anti-Semitic. Some interesting musical instruments going on over there. Oh, I'm getting arms over there. Now actually, there's the old bell up there. I've actually worked in that pub for a few weeks when I was a student, before going to university actually. Just to this is St Mary's Church, which is a very old church. It's there's the hall of it. I was in the choir there for a while. There's a kind of cemetery, gravestones around here. I was in the choir of it. I didn't really enjoy it much, and the other choir boys, I mean, they used to enjoy having a bit of a a fight around these gravestones. And I remember when I was a boy, we used to hide behind the gravestones and chuck stones at each other, not gravestones at each other, but just rocks and things. We used to pelt each other with small stones and try and hide behind these graves while we were doing it, which was good fun, I suppose, but it got a bit vicious at times. This is the corn exchange, which is, as you can see, quite old. Constructed by public subscription by Henry Day the bailiff in AD 1857, as you can see. George Lowe the architect, William Sear the builder, so that's quite historic. Much more historic, of course, is the actual church itself, which is Norman, which is 12th century. So that's a little bit of a look at the old town centre. Still some quite old parts up here to look at. That's quite old. The gents' toilet there. It's looking very old. There's more quite old Victorian buildings, if you like, here. 1888. This was always a Citizens Advice Bureau. Bailiwick of Hemel Hempstead. This marketplace was founded. This marketplace was founded. Was formed, and these buildings were erected by the bailiff and the Town Improvement Committee in AD 1888, which is also the thing we have there. Okay. much mistaken, there's a passion fruit growing there. These look like passiflora. You could probably harvest a few of them and make some jam if you wanted to. A little bit up on George Street now. This is the place opposite the school that my brother and sister went to for infants and juniors. I watch it when you go near a school and you're recording in this country, because everybody's automatically a paedophile who wants to do anything like that. So you've got to, but basically it's down there anyway, in that area. When my brother and sister went, I didn't go to that one. I went to the one that I showed you earlier in the series. But basically, there we are. Wonderful houses coming up, covered in ivy there on the right, covered in a kind of very reddish ivy. That one up there, yes. That used to belong to, I don't know, maybe it still does, I have no idea, no way of knowing. But that used to at least belong to a friend of mine. Was it this one or was it the next one? May have been the next one, not this one. Let me just check. Yes, I think it was actually this one, not that one, because just judging by the amount of space there was around it. An old friend of mine, we spent a lot of time in there and in the garden especially. And of course, Paul, his name was, 31, yeah, that sounds alright, that half there of it. And yeah, those were the days when you're a kid and he's got no worries. No idea if he lives there now, or what he's like now, or if his mum and dad still live there or not, so I'm not going to call there, but I've got nice memories of that place anyway. His mother was an Irish lady, a nurse, and very literary. Used to love things like James Joyce and George Bernard Shaw. She used to be very proud of the Irish heritage and quote from the Irish literary heritage on numerous occasions. It used to be the hospital, West Harts Hospital. There were two hospitals in Hemel Hempstead when they lured all the people here with fantastic health care, as in the promise of. One of them behind there has now been turned into a housing estate, and now they're planning to do that with the other part of it. So that Hemel Hempstead, which is going to be the largest town in Hertfordshire, won't actually have a hospital. How's that for planning? Don't you just want to get hold of the people responsible for that and name them and shame them, and then give them a couple of good kicks into the bargain? That's the least you want to do to them, isn't it? And put them inside a prison, that would be more like it. All to make more houses. There's what our buses look like anyway. Getting up nice and high. It's on a hill, it's on a valley, the valley of the Gade River. It's Hemel Hempstead. They're still using all the church, they're still building here on old hospital territory. Even though that hospital closed down such a long time ago, they still haven't got through all the territory. Well, first they build on part of it and tell the people buying those houses, oh, look at all the green space you've got nearby. And then of course later they build on that as well. And then they build on everything. But all the people who come no longer have a hospital in the town, or soon won't have. But they do have some pubs still, so that they can have their lager and then start messing about and stabbing each other in the evenings. That's the important thing. Being said, I don't want to do any injustice to pubs which strive to maintain a better class of clientele. For all I know, this one may be a very good pub without any instances of the sort of things that I've just described. So I don't want people writing in the comments, hey, you talked about stabbings and that when you were filming The Beehive and it's a lovely place and we weren't fair. I mean, because I didn't particularly mean this pub or any particular individual pub, but certainly you have to say this: most of the stabbings that take place happen after somebody's been at alcohol. So those of you publicans who are making sure that the clientele drink responsibly. More power to you, and hope many others do the same. Okay, so this is the first of the parades of local shops. This is for the neighbourhood of Highfield. This is Highfield, this is where Allendale comes out onto probably Fletcher Way, if I'm not mistaken. I have to check it before I say it, but not entirely sure I remember everything right. Royal Stag on that side, so you usually get a pub. It looks remarkably similar to a number of other ones in Hemel Hempstead, because it's all got the same 1950s, late 1940s, early 1950s architecture, which is fraying a little bit, as you can see, in places. But basically, you've got a parade of shops, and usually some residential flats above them. And you've got your more sort of housing style accommodation going around that. That used to be a Mazda garage, that Renault garage, and I actually audited it when it was a Mazda garage one time when I was living in this thriving metropolis. So it doesn't actually tell me that it's Fletcher Way, but from memory that I'd say it was Fletcher Way. Anyway, what are we doing with it? This is the parade of shops that we have here, and I have to decide what direction I'm going to go in from here. So you've got a little co-op, and you've got obviously parking next to it without too much bother, as I can see, which is nice in England to have a place you can just park without too much bother. You've got the nice co-op. You've got a post office in the co-op, because they don't have their own buildings anymore, post offices. They just got like a counter in another shop. That's because of the prominence of email these days. People don't need to post letters as much as they used to, and other services that you can simply get online. That means post offices have retreated from having whole buildings into just parts of other shops. There's a nice pet shop, or pet food shop, which is more nice than a pet shop. And there's a greengrocer, which is nice, old-fashioned greengrocer. Sort of trade and DIY supply shop, which is also great. And here is the mainstay of British cuisine, the Lemon Place, a fish and chip shop, a traditional English fish and chip shop, which I'd love to actually go into. Yeah, love to go in there, but I'm on a diet, so I can't. So here's me. You're witnessing me walking past the fish and chip shop and not going in it. There's Highfield Community Centre with an internet cafe on there, and one of our buses, a green sort of Arriva things that there is. Community Centre here. There's a piece of land which has been kept entirely wild and unbuilt on. It's been reserved for something that hasn't happened, and I happen to know what that is. That thing that hasn't happened. It's been reserved to build a church here, but a church has not been built here because people haven't got the money for it. It's funny, isn't it, how in all times in human history people have had the money to build churches and the interest in building churches, but right now, even when the space is reserved and promised for the churches to build on, and one church said yes they would build on it, but it still hasn't been possible for them to do so because they haven't been able to raise the funds or the interest to do it. It's a pity. So Highfield doesn't actually have its own church. So there we are. But then most people can take a bus and go to one of the other churches if they want to, but it seems a pity that some of the neighbourhoods here ended up without churches. You see going up there on that side of that field is actually the Nicky line, which we saw before. If you want to know more about the Nicky line, then look up Nicky line on this channel, or just search Nicky line Usenet posts, and you'll find out all about that Nicky line and see it from the other side. Basically here on the end of Cambrian Way, where Cambrian Way gets onto this roundabout here with the link road, it's called the link road, that's the end of Highfield as a neighbourhood. You've got Hammond School over there, then over there is Grove Hill on that side, which we're about to go into. The link road's interesting, in as much as it's like a kind of bypass of all this residential area, going down to the Gade area, to Leighton Buzzard Road, and linking it eventually up to the motorway and also the Redbourne Road. So it's one of the ways of bypassing the residential parts of Hemel Hempstead quite nicely. And it has that much meaning for me in that it actually was built the year that I was off between going from school to university. I think I'm talking about 1982-83, and I actually waved a theodolite around here as part of the building works that went on there. I worked a week on it. I worked for somebody who was so obnoxious. I'm afraid I made a big mistake. He was from Aston University, and he was very proud of being from Aston University, and he asked me what university I was going to go to. I should have said that I was going to go to some college of easy access, as I let on to him that I was going to Cambridge, and he never forgave me that and just gave me the hardest time he possibly could. And after a week I just couldn't hack it anymore at that age of this person, 3 or 4 years older than me, just doing everything he could to spite me. But on top of that, he was a South African, and I've never met a nice... Well, actually I have met some nice South Africans, but he wasn't one of them. Oh, here's an interesting sign. Jebać Policję. Now, if you're going to write "fuck the police" in Polish on our signs, at least get your own language right. It should be not Jebać Policję, it should be Jebać Policję. There should be a little cedilla underneath the E here. It's an accusative case. They not only do they write on our signs, but they don't even manage to get their grammar right. Poles, eh? I don't know. I don't go writing on their signs in Poland. Why do they have to do it on mine here in Hemel Hempstead? I just don't get it. And it's not the police's fault anyway. They just have to do what they're told. It's the people giving them instructions you want to blame, and also the lawyers, which mean, whose practice, just to make money, is making it much, much harder for the police to do their job efficiently. Don't blame the police. So you can usually tell, here, especially here in Grove Hill, which was partly built in the 1950s but was much more built in the 70s and then the 80s. This is obviously 50s build. You've got the terraces there, you've got even the old, here on Runcorn Crescent, you've got old style, almost faded now, street signs, and the terrace after terrace, like in Cambridge that I showed you one other time. Has I say lovely, typical more terrace. And then on the other side you've got Hunting Gate, where you've got a slightly more modern look, a newer look about the, it's still done in the style of the older one, the previous one, same font, but obviously much less faded. It's 1970s, and then look at the housing, there's 70s or 80s style housing going all the way down Hunting Gate on that side of the road. So basically it was, that side of the road was developed in the 1950s, and this side more in the later 70s and in the 80s. It's a different style because after the war people had to get housed quickly. There was big ideas about social housing, whereas in the 80s and Thatcher's Britain you had quite a different approach to the whole matter, with much more private ownership focus and you know, home ownership being something a bit more prestigious, and people wanted their homes to stand out from one another, and more semi-detached and detached homes, less terrace housing being built, and better housing reflecting the increased wealth in society. Whereas, you know, inside, once you get inside these places, they're going to be exactly the same as the other places. There's no real difference. But outside they look an awful lot more, well, let's say socialist, you know, post-war socialist. So here we are coming to another parade of shops. Again, you've got the inevitable pub at the end of it. What was the Royal Stag or whatever it was before it's here, the Green Acres Roman 2. You've got a medical centre there, which is not unusual in these places. They each have their clinic, and that's called Grovehill Clinic, as you can see. So, and there you've got the same idea, a parade of shops with a free car park in it. After the pub you've got a chemist's shop, which will give you your prescription medicines. Not as many chemist shops in England as there are in a lot of other countries. It's a percentage of overall shops, but they're still there. Martin's is a newsagent. You've got here another shop with pet supplies and florists in it, and a greengrocer's thing. And then you've got like a laundrette or a garment care place. Oh, somebody's playing Piaf, that's interesting. Non, je ne regrette rien. There we are, there's culture for you. There's a Tesco Express, that's in place of the Co-op in the other one that we looked at. And yes indeed, we've got a fish shop. This time it's called the Ming Fish Shop. It's also got pucker pies, which is nice. So you've got the traditions of fish and chips, which are not so much observed in the centre. You can certainly find out in all of the neighbourhoods. It's quite old-fashioned in a sense, this part of Hemel. So it's a nice looking fish and chip shop there, and a betting shop as well. Pass rapidly over that. And then we've got some computer shops which shouldn't have been around when I was a kid. And that looks like an off-licence with alcohol for sale. Probably just as guilty for producing lager lautism. A hairdresser. And there's some kind of a car parts store and a carpet store. Car parts and carpets next to each other, only the difference of one vowel, effectively, the way it's pronounced, but a very big difference in meaning. I saw a kingfisher the other day, by the way, on the canal. I was very surprised. I didn't have time to photograph it. It was just up and away in seconds, but it was long enough for me to tell what it was. So there we are. That's your Grovehill shops. Looking back on it, that's what it looks like. Quite nice, really. Enough for the neighbourhood to be able to get what they need. Done here, they've produced the Church of the Resurrection over there in the community area there, the Grovehill Community Centre as it's called. If I can focus on there, the Grovehill Community Centre. Over there they've managed to produce a Church of the Resurrection, which is Church of England and Roman Catholic and Free Church, which I assume means that they have different service times sharing the same building, which seems fairly sensible in a way. If they can't afford each to have their own building, then they have to share buildings. So it's and you can go to whichever service pleases you. So there we are. I think it's probably a reasonable idea. If you can afford to have your own building as a church, then all well and good. If not, well, maybe it's a good use of resources to do what they've done here. I'll have a look. So here we are. The Church of the Resurrection, as it's called. There's me walking with my camera. There's something interesting, isn't there? The Roman Catholic parish has Sunday Mass at 9:30 on Sundays, weekday Masses Monday and Tuesday, Saturday it has at 5 PM if somebody wants to do it at 5 PM. Anglican Free Church, Anglican or Free Church. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Either you're an Anglican church or you're a Free Church. They have a female minister. I don't know how the Catholics stand with sharing a building with somebody with a female minister. Nevertheless, to arrange a baptism or Thanksgiving for your child. They have their own. Each child has his own Thanksgiving, does he now? It's personal turkey. Anyway, weddings or funerals. So there we are. I don't know. Doesn't look as though there's any Bible verses here, anything to say anything about we are one in the Spirit. Not quite sure what Spirit they're referring to. Maybe it's the Holy Spirit, maybe it's just some general Spirit. No ball games. In the old font. I love the old font of the no ball games sign. Is it focusing? It never wants to focus these days, that's the problem with it. No ball games, there we are. So there we are, it's got the word resurrection on it, it's got the cross on the roof, but it tells you precious little about the gospel from the outside. Let's hope they get onto it in services sometimes. I'm going to get onto the fact that having female church officers, anything higher than a deacon, there's nothing said about deacons, but somebody that's, a bishop, for example, an elder. The thing is that they've messed it all up. They call them different things. Vicars, I don't know what a vicar is. It doesn't say about vicars in the New Testament. So if a vicar means just a deacon, then that might be possible to have as a female, but that means you've effectively got no elder, no oversight of the church. If that person's supposed to be somebody having oversight, or a presbyter as it's called in the New Testament, then that person ought not to be a female, and having that person being a female, look at those lovely berries, all different, look, there's like traffic lights, isn't there? Red, orange and green. That's quite nice. I'll have a photo of that in a minute. That person ought not to be a female because it's disobedience to the New Testament, and nothing good comes of disobedience. Alright, I'll take a photo of that. Incidentally, if you do see these, okay, on a bush anywhere, don't eat them because they're poisonous. I think these are definitely poisonous, these berries. They look from the leaf a little bit like belladonna. I'm not saying that categorically, but they look a bit that way. So you definitely don't want to eat them. Washington Avenue, named after George Washington. There having been, of course, cherry trees here which they chopped down to make these houses. Okay, according to this, I've come walking a fairly straight line in that direction, 3.2 kilometres away from my home, because I sent it to go back home. Let me just have a look and see what the actual height is here. It's 143 metres of elevation. Hopefully you can see that. So basically, having come out about 3 kilometres odd, I'm now going to try and do a big circle at 3 kilometres away from the home. So walking out 3 kilometres and then going round in a circle 3 kilometres away from the home. It's 6 pi r, isn't it? So therefore you've got to think of it as about 18 kilometres to go around. If you go around in a great big thing like that, a big round circle, that's roughly the kind of walk I have in mind. So it won't all be filmed though, because I'm running out of film. to the Redbourne Road. You got the Nicky line coming out there that we saw before on the Nicky line film going that way and that way. We're now going along the main road. Going off there's more inter-town bus rather than one of Hemel Hempstead's own buses. Here we've got High Street Green meets Adeyfield Road. This being the district of Adeyfield, another neighbourhood, and the largest of the neighbourhoods of Hemel Hempstead is Adeyfield, with Grovefield probably running a close second. Adeyfield was one of the original ones built when the town became a new town, so the preponderance of architecture is 1950s here, late 1940s too. And in a minute I'm going to show you the Queen Square, which is the neighbourhood shops of this particular area. Look at these interesting black mushrooms that there are here. These are sort of like mushrooms that they're jet black. I don't know what they are. Maybe I'll take a couple of photos of them. Maybe somebody can identify. There seems to be a mushroom planet here, moving up there and then up there, although it's maybe not too different. They've got gills and they're sort of white colour. They don't look very edible to me. I don't like ones with gills if I can avoid it, other than of course the champignon, the standard mushroom. There's the parasol mushroom. I saw some parasol mushrooms coming out of London. Nobody had bothered taking them up and eating them. Either no Poles had been along that way, or there'd been some rather urban Poles who'd forgotten what parasol mushrooms are supposed to look like, or on the other hand it may have been that people thought they were too near the road and wouldn't be very healthy, which also would be a good reason not to take them. So anyway, there's lots of unspoilt nature, even though we're in the middle of a town. This is next to Hoblett's Manor Nursery Infant and Junior Schools, which used to be called Maylands. For many years my father was deputy head of that school when it was called Maylands. Don't know why they changed it to Hoblett's Manor. Sounds a little bit like something out of Tolkien to me, but never mind. Maybe that's what tickled their fancy. Maylands was a perfectly good name. Maylands is also the name of the industrial estate in Hemel Hempstead, which was quite a leading industrial estate when it was built, one of the better ones, which we may well be able to visit as well at some point in the proceedings. I'm just going towards the Queen Square in Adeyfield. Apart from Hoblett's Manor or ex-Mayland School, there was also Broadfield School on the other side of Adeyfield, also in Adeyfield, a bit closer to home for me, and that's where, as you know, I went to junior school myself, and we've had Broadfield School in an earlier part of the series, in the last series of Uncle Davy's Heart's Content, if you want to look at that. But we won't look at it again today. Coming into Queen Square, probably the best of them. You've got the new venture. I think that's called something else. I can't remember, the Queen something. I think it's something to do with the Queen, and that's why it's called the Queen Square. When it was right there. There's the co-op, and it's not a bad co-op. And again, you've got nice, interesting things. You know the drill by now. There are probably about 7 or 8 of these at least. There's another betting shop, dry cleaners, newsagents, baker shop. There's a trophy shop. There's not one of those. There's not a trophy shop in every single one of these, but each of them can have their own specialist shop and attract people from other neighbourhoods as well. As again, the drill of the free car park in the middle, usually quite well used. There's a pharmacist over there, a Windmill Cafe. That's because of Windmill Road being that road going up there. There's a Chinese restaurant, Chinese takeaway by the way, Chinese food takeaway. There's a tremendously good fish and chip smell, and that seems to be from this Barker's place here. That seems to be the fish and chip shop there. There's a Martin's over there, which is a newsagent's, with another pharmacy over there. It seems to have been two competing with each other. Pharmacy there and a pharmacy there. So you've got another, actually two dry cleaner shops here as well. Rainbow Dry Cleaners against that one over there. So you've got quite a lot of stuff here. And actually, believe it or not, there's actually still a post office, which is its own building, which is already becoming a rarity. So quite a lot going on here. I'm very tempted by that smell of fish and chips. I think I have to move away from this area quickly. In this part of Adeyfield you've got Everest Way, conjoining with Tenzing Road, named after Sherpa Tenzing. We've also got a Hillary Road for is it Edmund Hillary? I can't remember what kind of Hillary it is, but all to do with mountaineering. Anyway, these famous people going up Everest and breaking records, doing things like that because they were there. Anyway, because things are there, we photograph things because they're there. We want to show I want to show what these things look like right now. They probably won't look the same in a few years' time. Change happens, and so we document the way things are right now. All people that do these environmental videos was the term coined by Ken Bank of Ken Bank Channel. That the term environmental almost sounds like people that are going to go out and sort of find out excuses for adding taxes to your already high tax burden. Environmental has almost become a dirty word in a sense, but basically it's about filming what's around you. There's another school. I didn't even know there was one. Seems to be schools everywhere. Having walked out of that interesting little pathway leading from Adeyfield, I now find myself on Mayflower Avenue, and the Hemel Hempstead's leading edge, as it was in the 1950s, certainly 60s and 70s, leading edge industrial estate, with extra pieces even being built on it today. This is towards the outside edge of it. There's a lot of European head offices here, national head offices, a lot of production of light engineering, small parts going on up here. It's a modern industrial estate. At the extreme east of Hemel Hempstead. Beyond here we have what is known as Bunsfield Depot, and that's very famous because in December some 4 or 5 years ago, can't exactly remember whether it was 2003 or 2004, but it was December. You can look it up on Wikipedia, and it was the biggest explosion in peacetime Europe. On the same day that happened, this massive explosion, the reason for that being that it's the main depository of oil and petrol for all of the chains of petrol stations around southern England. And the same day that happened, back in Pakistan, there was an explosion on a bus because some people had let fireworks off after a wedding party. 7 people died. This was the largest explosion. The whole sky was filled. I'm going to show some photos shortly from the news footage of that. The whole sky was filled with a column of fire and smoke. It could be seen from an awful long way away. The explosion was felt in Holland, and my parents sort of found themselves woken up already on their feet that morning, and the sky was orange all over the town. They thought it was going to be a massive environmental fallout. In fact, it simply disappeared in the course of a few days, which makes you think. Anyway, Bunsfield, very famous. One of the things that Hemel Hempstead's famous for. I don't want to get any nearer to it than that. It's just over that hill, on the other side of there. One of the reasons why people didn't die is because of the way Hemel Hempstead's been planned. You've got this buffer area here between the end of the industrial estate and where Bunsfield starts. The only other thing there's a cemetery, where the minister that I mentioned at the church at the start of this is lying, and a number of other people that from Hemel Hempstead, was a very large cemetery, are there, and of course they're already dead. They can't get more dead than they already are by an explosion anyway, so that's the thing which there is there, and then afterwards we've got the industrial estate here, which nobody was there that early in the morning. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. There were only a few people around, and so very, very fortunately nobody died, and there's no residential around here until you get quite a lot further down. Already windows were blown out of some people's homes and shops because of the size of the blast, but nobody died, and that's very, very much a testimony to good town planning. That's the sort of town planning we had in the 1950s. It's only gone downhill since then. Since the explosion at Bunsfield was actually heard in Holland and caused people in the centre of Hemel Hempstead, like my parents, to wake up already on their feet, if you had been where I'm standing now when the Bunsfield explosion took place, just over beyond those further trees there, you'd probably have been deafened. And if there'd been anything solid coming whizzing towards you, then you might have been to have your head taken off. But that didn't happen to anybody, which is very, very good. Right, well, we're on one of the main roads out to St Albans, Leverstock Green Road. Leverstock Green, having been one of the closer parts of Leverstock Green to Bunsfield, were actually evacuated during the Bunsfield fire. What we have here is Leverstock Green Road and the sign to the local shops, because this is another, well, nowadays effectively a neighbourhood of Hemel Hempstead, a very posh neighbourhood. Its residents might reject me saying that they're a neighbourhood of Hemel Hempstead, because they were a village much older than the new town of Hemel Hempstead. So as you see, some very older architecture here, and it's Leverstock Green, which is a little bit like Soylent Green, but they don't eat people. Not in that sense anyway. And they basically have, some cottages like this which are authentically old, and then other things which are obviously a little bit newer but built carefully in an older style next to them. And effectively it's a very nice place to live within Hemel Hempstead. So the average house price here in this particular village near Hemel Hempstead, this particular effective neighbourhood of Hemel Hempstead now, is, well, much higher than probably at least half as much again, if not double, the average house price for sale in Highfield, which we looked at earlier. Green Man, the Green Man pub, which looks a little bit like a sort of cabbage. There's the pub anyway. And the green itself, which Leverstock Green is named for, is over there. The green with the cricket pitch over there. And again on this side you've got much of a muchness, the same New Town's idea here. Wing Fu House is Chinese food, then you've got Spar, which is a supermarket. It's found in many countries, I believe it's American, although Sparen is German, of course, to save. You've got a family butcher of the old-fashioned kind. You've got a TV shop, which is probably going to pull in people from other neighbourhoods as well, because it's every so often you get one which is only in this particular neighbourhood. Simmons, a bakery there. There's another pharmacy. I think you've got a newsagent's on the corner and a post office inside the newsagent. Further down there you actually have a local branch of the library, Hertfordshire County Library, and you've got Leverstock Green Village Hall is pretty much part of the same building complex there with the library. And this road is called Village Centre. There we are, at least it's written in British English with the R in front of the E. It may sound a little bit American, Village Centre, rather than calling it some name like Leverstock Green Lane or something like that. But calling it Village Centre is, you know, a little bit not very old-fashioned, but at least they've kept the old centre in English rather than centre as it's written in American. You know, we wouldn't want to have British English ever dropping French spellings of certain words and adopting more Spanish-like ones as they do in America. This would take you to Bedmond and Watford if you go down there, Bedmond Road. I have to get down to more Hemel Hempstead way, which is more going to be down that way, I think. I have to consult my sat-nav to know which way to go from here. It's called the Leather Bottle, and my mother was telling me something about needing to turn off and do something here and get down some very nice villages. Maybe she meant turning down there, but I don't know. I'll have to check it on the sat-nav. The old town shield. This sign was caused to be erected. It wasn't erected, it was caused to be erected by the Leverstock Green Village Association at the beginning of the year 2000 AD. As in case you get any ideas about it being 2000 BC, that would be a bit misleading. To commemorate the vigorous community which has flourished here during past millennia and which continues to strength into the new millennium, proud of its own identity, i.e. proud of not really being Hemel Hempstead, I think is what they're saying between the lines, that we know that they are, and there's nothing you can do about it, sorry. Leverstock Green with its little oak, which is odd because it's right in front of a sycamore tree, but with oak leaves and acorns. Leverstock Green, ancient manor of West Wickie, manor of Margate Oakie, Langley with Westwick, of Leverstock Green. So that's the bit of history there, and you've got somebody digging there in some water and somebody else swiping his head off as he does so, which I think is a little bit unfair, because you don't want your last moments on the earth, you know, to be, you know, digging your own grave while somebody else is actually in the process of beheading you. But you know, that's how they obviously want to commemorate the origins of the city, and you know, as they're, or the village, and as they're separate to us from Hemel Hempstead and they don't want to be part of us, when they can get on with it and do it their own way. Established that it's such a posh area, what kind of cars might you expect people to have here? There's a very long stretch thingamajig over there. Very nice house here, and they all have names, you know, not numbers. They don't want your number, just your name. This one's called Bocklers, which is because of the speaking habits of the people of this region. And here, on that side of the road, we have two very typical Leverstock Green cars. This Daimler, which we pronounce Daimler, even though originally it was Daimler, because we don't want to sound common. And this other thing, which is really rather splendid, don't you think? Anyway, we're waiting for the happy couple to come out of the church. And there's a graveyard where the people, the good burghers of Leverstock Green, can go and think how fortunate they are that before they got there they managed to save up inordinate amounts of wealth. Lovely roses, English roses here in Leverstock Green. That's what we like to see. None of your foreign muck. For example, we have thistles. Now they're from Scotland, which is alright as long as you have the laird of the manor. I hope it was a laird of the manor who planted those thistles there and not some oik from Glasgow. Anyway, here we have Chambersbury Lane, which I'm going to follow down because this is becoming a bit with this Bedman Road, which goes to Bedman Village, which is where they have a mast, a radio mast there. I don't want to follow that for too long because after a while there's no... Well, it's definitely not Hemel Hempstead when we get to Bedmont. So here we have Chambersbury Lane, which as we see is Borough of Decorum, which means it's effectively still in Hemel Hempstead. Everybody likes to avoid the use of that term. Either they call themselves Decorum or they call themselves Leverstock Green, but they don't want to call themselves Hemel Hempstead, which is not really understandable because it's an ancient name. There was a priest called Hemel in the 7th century AD, and he had a homestead. He built a homestead there, and it was Hemel's homestead. And it's also recorded in the Domesday Book as a settlement, so it's of very ancient pedigree. But nevertheless, people do try to avoid and not be proud of the name Hemel Hempstead, which is beyond understanding for me. Just because it became a new town, it doesn't mean that the roots of Hemel Hempstead, which are ancient, are in any way compromised by that. Here we are at the end of Hemel Hempstead's, I'm getting my accent back because I've left Leverstock Green behind now. It's Chambersbury Lane, coming down towards more of the Bennett's End area, which is common, so I can talk more in a more neutral accent. Oh, I've got a telephone call. Anyway, that over there that you see is Bedman Mast that I mentioned. That's Bedman Village and Bedman Mast. Coming down Chambersbury Lane, this is the last that I can do because it's as far as my batteries allow me to go, which means that I can do more. I still haven't exhausted to the end everything that Hemel Hempstead has to offer, so that means it isn't quite the end of the series yet, and there'll be more episodes. But I can't do anything more today because my battery, I also used it to clear yesterday's pictures off, and now it's gone and not given me the full hour. So there we are, that's all it.
Oi, 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 oi.